it's amazing to have your kind of energy driving the Swedish ecosystem forward. So a very warm welcome to Startup Grind today.
Thank you so much, Naimul. It's my pleasure to be here. Huge fan of yours, huge fan of Startup Grind. So I think this is a really important platform. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Umid, for being here for our community, because this event is also being recorded. It'll be put on Startup Grind live YouTube channel tomorrow. So if somebody misses that, they can always access it there. But we are very thankful you could join us today and talk about Techarena. But before we talk about Techarena, we are very curious in learning more about you. What brought you to building ecosystems? What kind of drove you to this mission? Let's
Yeah,
go
I
there.
think that's yeah, very good question. Thank you so much. So from my side, I would say that the very, very early stages of my life, like half my life, the only thing I did was playing football. So I had like one mission and I wanted to do it to the perfection. And, it's a lot of grinding. It's a lot
Mhm.
of, taking in information. It's a lot of trying to become better all of the time. And then whatever you put in is basically what you get back. So that,
Mm.
I would say, shaped me a lot. And if you fast forward, my background was within marketing, business development, communications, and some sales. And the journey towards starting to building such a platform, this was nothing I thought about when I was younger. I basically didn't know what a share was, what a startup was, but at around like 10, 12, 14 years ago, I joined this business group and which were focused on going in very early, working with researchers and solving one of the major problems that we have, I think in Sweden, maybe globally, is to make use of all of the kind of good scientific results that we have and bring them to market to solve actual world problems. So when I joined, we had 10 holdings. The name of the company was Serendipity Innovations. We had 10 holdings within medical technology, clean technology, biotechnologies, all of these very, very long time to market
Mhm, mhm,
companies.
mhm.
And one of the things that I noticed quite early on is that it's so hard, to build these type of companies. And my role was basically try to help them go from this R&D focus towards
Mhm.
becoming more commercial. So everything that has to do with them, helping out with traction. We needed investors, you needed
Mm.
clients, you needed partners. And getting the opportunity to work so closely with the founders and CEOs, you learn a lot.
Mm.
And as time went by, we were quite successful in what we did. So more and more innovators and research teams and founders start reaching out to us and say, could you please help us with the same things that you are doing? And unfortunately, we couldn't. Like it's enough with one company, but if you have 10 companies, that's, you can't really take on more. So what we did is that we joined forces with a media outlet, and we decided let's do a competition for all of these companies. So it started out with an entrepreneurship competition in a very small Swedish city called Båstad. The first year was a disaster, but we did some really, really, I would say, really interesting finding that the day after the competition, we brought some stakeholders from the industrial sector, some investors, some media, and all of these finalists in our entrepreneurship competition to come together. And this small gathering created so much value. So that is basically what Techarena is today. It's though that small gathering together with the competition, but much, much bigger.
Amazing, amazing. Like really interesting to hear your journey, your passion for football. And I think you mentioned a couple of very interesting things which are generally very important for the startup building process. Like you talked about one mission and do it well. I
Yeah.
think that's a huge thing. When you are building things, you need hyper focus. Because if you're not focused, your energy will not be channeled. It'll be dispersed across several threads. Part one. You also mentioned something very interesting, which is also very relevant for startup context. What you put in, you get back eventually, and
Yeah,
it's the basic thing of even building networks. The more energy you put in, the more energy comes back to you. And very interesting, finally, to learn about what you talked about in context of serendipity at innovation at that time, 10 holdings, like long cycle from R&D to commercialization. I think we are still struggling in deep tech with
yeah,
that, even though we have
yeah,
progressed 10 years or 15 years ahead by this time. But the struggles are still real for long range innovation. Like it's a
yeah.
huge cycle, and probably capital needs to turn around. So great to hear about that, Umid. For everybody here on the community, feel free to introduce yourself, put your LinkedIn profile, and ask a question from Umid, from me, from Tech Arena. I think we are here for this. So, Umid, tell me, in your mind, what is Tech Arena? Because and that's a very simple question about brands. Like if when Nike is creating Nike, it's a brand in their head, but then consumer perceives it in a one particular way, like a shoe or something. So from your side as a founder, what is Tech Arena? What have you given the world?
Uh, I like that question as well. So for me, Techarena is a platform where we are our main goal, like the highest goal of everything that we have, is that we want to create a platform that enables companies to grow. So I mean that's the kind of that's that could be our slogan. It's a bit generic, but that's what we want to
Mm,
create. So as a founder, you should be able to come to Tech Arena, and you should be able to do basically all of the things that you need to do in your growth journey. So you should be relevant for you in the beginning, where you might come and do your first meetings with investors or listen to some founders. It should be relevant for you at the next stage. Where you
mm.
might be someone who's on a stage, or get connections from us, or invite people, and then we do delegations, so we can bring you to other countries. We should be relevant for you if you're one of these companies that needs to talk to politicians. Like you're bringing something new. You need to change rules and regulations. You need to get your voice heard. So I think that we want to be like we want to be this platform where if that supports growth in Sweden. But now I think our mission is bigger, right? Because we want to be a window towards the world, and we want for companies, Nordic companies, to get access, and showcase, and then also bring international companies and founders and investors to the Nordics. I think that's our mission.
Very important points, and I think it's great that you're focusing again, hyper focusing on the word growth. So you're
Yeah,
identified
yeah,
companies, their growth, and then you talked about different flywheels you have around the growth, like how can companies find growth. And I wrote it in my notes, so I'm on second page of my notes right now. So
yeah.
it's such an interesting conversation. You talked about politicians. We don't see them in general startup ecosystems. So while you are making a conscious effort for startups to also reach out to politicians, why? Why do you think that is important?
I mean, so I would say all the way from the start, when
Mm,
you're bringing when you're bringing founders and you're
mm,
listening to what they're doing, and then you see that whatever they try to create, there will be need for some changes going forward. So that's one of the things. So it was quite a conscious from the beginning. And then
mm,
secondly, you want to have founders. They also need to make politicians understand what kind of decisions they need to take in the future and what's coming, what type of
mm,
changes are coming. And what I noticed back in 2014, 2015, 2016, so in 2016, I don't know if you remember, but we got this kind of boom of startups. Everybody wanted to be a founder. I would get calls from basically all of the large corps. They wanted to do incubators, they wanted to do accelerators. They didn't really know what it was, but they want to do everything like that. So once you get that type of opportunity, then we saw directly that okay, there would be a lot of there will be a lot of disruptions in many industries, and we need to get. And then politicians started to talk about as well as CEOs for big companies started to talk about, innovators and startups. But I understood that they never met. You take an example, but you don't meet them. So that was what we wanted to create. So that was also one of the conscious decisions why we're doing one of our biggest events every year. We have host 2 large-scale events, but we're doing it in Almedalen because you have access to politicians and also, the other types of decision makers. So that's like one of the very conscious decisions that we made, is to bring them in. And then, last year we had, I think, 9 ministers, the prime minister, we had politicians from other countries. Maybe it was a bit overwhelming at our event at Strawberry. So this year it will be a bit less, but they need to be part of the discussions, and not just as someone that, sends messages. They need to be the receivers of message. So I'm not as interested in listening to what they have to say as I am in them listening in what we have to say.
I think that's an amazing perspective. Like, there's a lot of talk coming from politicians anywhere in the world. So I think it's a great to have a platform which is a listening feedback mechanism for them, for a community which probably they don't listen and don't know that much. So I think it's a great positioning, and your positioning on Almadalen with your presence there is also great. You also mentioned companies. What benefit companies have in meeting startups? Like, what benefit do you see there? What have you noticed over the past several years in building this platform? Like, what is the benefit on both sides for startups and for companies in the collaboration?
Yeah, for startup, it's a live nerve, right? It's a live nerve of a startup to get clients. So at the end of the day, we write about some big rounds, investment rounds. They get funding, they get this. But if you want to succeed as a startup, you need to have customers. Basically, that's it, right? You need to have a market or create a market. You need to have a customer, so you need to grow. So if you look at it from that perspective, and especially if you're within this kind of research-intensive industries, then you need to have collaborators. Like, the industrial sector is so important at the early stages for anyone who wants to create something, because you want to have this creative dance, right? You can't sit in your lab and just create, a product and then go out and someone says, yeah, but this doesn't work in our environment. You need to have collaborators, partners, and all of this. So that's like, for startups, I would say that's a life nerve. And then if you go to the other side, for the big corporations, they always need innovation, and they always need talent, and they always need to understand what's happening. In some cases, they're very good at collaborating. In some cases, they're good at buying these new services. And in some cases, they just acquire you, right? But for you to have that kind of connection between them, and you have this kind of, so they can inspire, they can share, knowledge, they can share experiences, and they can share how you, and they can share, all of these kind of feedback, create these feedback loops. I think that's very important.
Okay, so there is value on both sides, and it's in several forms. Like, there could be customers for startups, learning process for startups, for businesses. It could mean tapping into a new form of innovation, which if actually reflects when they acquire a startup. So I think there's a lot of value on both sides. Let's go into your experience of building this ecosystem.
Yeah.
So when you're building an ecosystem, like Techarena is a mighty big ecosystem now. But they are smaller ecosystems. So when you're building an ecosystem or structuring it, what are some of the key things to keep in mind? How do you succeed in building something like Techarena?
Yeah. So I had a meeting some years ago with one of the, I think, largest event organizers in the world. And they had someone who was specialized in like tech events. And he said something that is quite interesting. He said that in every country, like there might be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, these type of events or communities. And you need to, and their strategy was to start to collaborate with them, acquire them, or, and then I was like, why don't you just go in? You have so much money. You have all the knowledge. You have all the money. You already have all the partners. Why don't you just go in and, create these type of events yourself? Just flood the market. And he said that it's impossible. He said that it's so they don't have any trust, right? They don't know the ecosystem. They don't have any relations, and these things you cannot just build it. You like you cannot just do it like this. So I would say like this kind of unfortunately building an ecosystem like this takes some time.
Yeah.
So that's like one of the, I think it's hard to come in and say we're building this today. So it takes time, but it is possible if you do it like niched, if you do it with quality, if you do it with the kind of right mindset, you're creating it for I don't know, a group of founders or a specific, then it is possible to create this, and it's of course possible to build it like in a higher pace. But when it comes to bringing in startups and investors and the industrial sector and decision makers and politicians and all of this, I think this is a job that you have to do like you have to do it very cautious, and then you have to have some patience. I don't have any patience, but you have to have patience, and then you have to kind of accept that you will become, more, and it will improve and grow at a specific pace. So I think that's kind of what I've learned. So, and from us, we were quite lucky initially to be able to build this with quite high integrity. And what I mean with this is that in the beginning, I didn't need anyone to fund this. So
Yeah.
I didn't really need to, do a lot of specific changes to our kind of vision of bringing entrepreneurs, or, what to give them, all of these type of things, because we decided everything ourselves. And that type of mindset that stuck with us. So everything that we do that includes the kind of ecosystem and, the founders and everybody around it, we always like, is it creating value for them? And is it worth it? So they're never the product. I think that's the most important. They're not the product that we said. They're the whole reason why we're doing this. And then for me, like over time, then you need to understand like your position. Okay, so now we're a bit bigger. Before everything was free, but now we need to sell tickets. Okay, how can we do it in the best way? We need to bring international partners. So what do they need to come here? We want to bring international delegation. How big of a size does the event or the platform or the community need to be for them to find it interesting? So we had this kind of eye-opening call some years ago. We invited some high-level people, and we invited some delegations and representatives from different countries. And we said, come to our event. We want you to bring, have country pavilions and all of this. And the response, some of the response was, it's too small. So we had an event for 4,000 people at Waterfront. They said it's too small. We cannot invest any money in coming to this. So, there's a lot of different things that you need to kind of start building and, falling into place, and then you learn along the way. But I think if someone want to get started, I would say if you have a passion for something and you can invite people and you can do it like with the right mindset, and you don't, I don't really want to say it, but if you don't need profit immediately, and you can do it like as a good, you can create a good platform, then I think that's the way to go.
I think very, very interesting points here, Omid. And thank you. I think you mentioned something very important, like this takes time. I think that's a massive realization for anybody who is building a community. It's not an overnight success. Although from the outside, it looks like, wow, this happened, boom.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of hard work that goes in. So I think, and that's where your point on integrity is very important. I also run ecosystems. Ecosystems need to be run 100% transparently on very high integrity. Otherwise, community's core asset is integrity. So I think that's a very important point. And you talked about also investment and money. And I think what I also see is going back to your football time and single-minded focus comment from start. The single-mindedness also reflects in how Techarena has evolved, the logo has evolved, the positioning has evolved, the business has evolved. And you're absolutely right. When you are doing things over time the scale is moving, so you need to adapt your thinking, test new things and learn from it, because something which works here probably will not work here. You might need a
Yeah.
very different thing for a different scale. Now coming to Sweden, like Tech Arena, that's happening next month.
Yeah.
It's You have Zlatan coming in there. There's a lot of international. Last year it was Richard Branson who was there.
Yeah.
What's the idea behind this annual big event? Like, what is it that you're trying to achieve in that Strawberry Arena over 2 or 3 days?
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is so you're talking about this evolution, so you need to have things you're excited about, right?
Mm,
So this is something that we're very much excited about.
mm,
We as I told you when we started this, it's been a process. We've been quite big in different. We've been quite big, on a national level, maybe in some cases on a Nordic level. But then, I don't know, I remember 4 or 5 years ago, I went into this, starting to think more about, okay, what are we creating and how can we do more? And one of the things that I started to look was the numbers. So I know for a fact that many startups that are part of our competition, they get an investment right after. It's something that they can, they can put in their pitch deck, or they actually meet
mm,
people there, or they get a lot of feedback. So, that I know. I know that a lot of entrepreneurs who are with us, they get customers. And I know a lot of our partners, they also meet other relevant people. So I know that we're creating some very good kind of output when it comes to supporting the growth, not only for the founders, but also for the business sector.
mm,
But then if
mm,
you look at like a bigger scale, so let's take like Slush as an example. So I read that between 2014 2018, the association, I think, for investments in Finland, they've seen that thanks to Slush, investments in Finnish startups has increased by 400%. So that's like one realization. And then there's another thing that the same report said, it was that the number of companies that survived over a certain time was tenfold. They said that this is thanks to Slush. And then you start reading about all the other kind of economic impacts that these type of events have, and you see, okay, so if we want to create kind of a large scale event, and if you want to create this type of large scale effects for the Swedish economy and for the Swedish companies, and also in the next step for the Nordics, we need to do something else than what we're already doing. And so from, I would say, 2019, our goal was to start going abroad. We was going to have events in Brazil. We were looking at South Korea. We had partnerships. COVID came, so we switched that. So we changed our minds actually after COVID, and this is where the realization came that okay, we can do much more for Sweden. So. And the kind of final push over the edge was when we went to Denmark and Tech Barbecue. So we've always been to Slush, and it's an institution, right? You think like it's always been there. Slush is Slush. And then we went to Denmark and we saw that, okay, Tech Barbecue. I went to the matchmaking area, and I don't understand Danish so well, but you
mm,
don't really need to understand Danish there, because basically everybody's Swedish. You have Swedish founders talking to Swedish investors, and that was kind of what drove us over the edge. So we came back, and then we said, okay, so it's our mission to give Sweden, or create this large scale tech event platform that can bring international, the kind of international ecosystem and business sector to Sweden, and
mm,
then also give a window for like this Sweden and the Nordics towards kind of the international ecosystem. So I know that if we succeed, this is a process, right? So I've been doing this for 3 years now. I would say like within 2 years, I want this to be one of the most important tech events in Europe. I think that we will be there. And when I say one of the most important, it's not that we want the most people, but we want the most relevant people. So that
mm,
means that instead of having 50 people from one event going to maybe such an event as Web Summit, which is amazing. We want maybe 3 persons from that company, but the 3 decision makers. So this is the kind of forum that we want to create. Our goal is to be a important and vital player that actually changes and creates opportunities, and really really do a contribution to Sweden.
I think very good points, and you have been so open in mentioning other ecosystems. It's really great because the way I work in ecosystem is I don't think competition is a competition. We are all operating in the same space, and in my view, the opportunity is always so much bigger than the combined commercial forces or non-commercial forces. So even when we are building ecosystems, the founder and innovation quantum is too big for us to be competing. We can collaborate so much better to serve even more to the same ecosystem. So really good point. You also, I'm kind of going back to some of my notes. You talked about growth very early on for startups as a value. You talked about integrity in creating ecosystems as the other part. And I think what you started talking about here is effect. Like, what is the combination of integrity in ecosystem building and bringing everybody together and supercharging it with growth? And then you talked about what Slush achieved, and hopefully we are very keen on how Techarena achieves this in the next couple of years at a European scale, with as you're saying, most important and most relevant people in this scale. So this year's events highlight, for example, you have a star football player coming in, needs no introduction. What drove you to selecting Zlatan this year?
To be completely honest, we have asked Zlatan every year, I think for 4 or 5 years, for him to come. So he's always been on the top of the list. But if you look at Zlatan, so I would say that you can take some of the companies that we have now that are growing very fast, and they're out. And they're, being used as cases when the Swedish Prime Minister talk about it, when you talk about, when I'm large-scale companies, everybody is talking about these people, right? These companies. There's a few of them. And I think this is the kind of mentality and approach that's needed going forward. I mean, to create this kind of next wave of great companies. If you look like the Magnificent Seven, you have them with Amazon and Tesla and Meta, all of this. So they've been created between some quite early on, but they got their kind of break, let's say, during the 2 last decades, right? And I think that right now is the time when the kind of next Magnificent Seven companies will be created. Either they might have already been founded, or they will be now. And I think that we have an opportunity now in Sweden and the Nordics and in Europe to be part of that. But then you also need a specific type of mindset. And you need to be the best. You need to believe that you're the best. You need to create a global brand. You need to be extremely efficient. You need to be extremely professional. So, if you take all of this and combine it, and you say, okay, so can you name one person? You need to also be a bit cocky in a good way. So I think like Zlatan embodies all the things that you need to be able to succeed in the way that you have, as a company. So I think that he will be a very good kind of personality to kind of mimic when you move forward when it comes to these things. And then, because like one other thing that I like about sports is that you can never fake it. When it comes to sports, you cannot fake it. Even if you might cheat, you cannot just wake up one day and say, yeah, I'm going to cheat and I will win the 100 meters, men's running, or I will become you know what I mean? So you need to put in the work. And that's the same thing with entrepreneurship. Like you need to put in the work. And then I would say I'm also very happy that we have Boris Johnson. It's also a part of this kind of, okay, what conversations and what insights do we actually need to have now when we're moving forward? because it's easy to sit on a stage and say the right things that everybody wanna hear, right? Everybody's agreeing with each other and everybody wanna hear it. But if you bring someone, of course, he might seem to be a bit controversial. But if you look at, okay, so he brought UK, he did the kind of going the Brexit thing, right? So he negotiated with a lot of countries, and you see all of it, a lot of like that type of uncertainties and going on right now. He did the net zero for the London Olympics. I think he was one of the first one. He did a lot of investments into this whole kind of science and technology back then. And one of the other things is that when you bring this kind of ex-politicians, they know how it works. They still have some connections. They can tell you what's happening. They can give you the truth. Because they're no longer in office. And I think that's also important for us to hear. When you sit and you can you can understand what's going on with trade, what's going on with politics, what will happen, what's his insights. I think that's really, really interesting. So that's like, and of course, I think he might be a person that speaks a bit more freely than some other people. And I think that's needed. We need to get a lot of real insights now, because now is the time we need to take action from Sweden, Nordics, and Europe.
I think those are amazing points. I love it when when our conversation on Zlatan went to sports in general, because I think my thesis is also very clear that sports is all about performance. So if you're not, it's very much visible. The statistic is on the screen while you're running, while you're delivering. It shows it's real-time result. And I think it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. Like if you're acquiring users, if you're losing users, if people are saying good things about you or bad things about, it's all very much visible out in the open space. So it's all about performance. And I think Zlatan exudes confidence and confidence, ambition. Like people can actually, there are very few people can look up to and see, oh wow, I want to have this superhero energy. So I think that's an excellent choice, and that has a very close connection to how entrepreneurship works. You also mentioned about like Boris Johnson. Like I followed him very closely before he was in power and while he was in power. And I think one lesson is very important, irrespective of whichever side of politics we are. Entrepreneurship is a force of change. And even in politics, if we are not changing things, like some things can be good for some and bad for some, stagnance is not an option. Things should change for the better. So I think that's also a great choice. And it also reflects a little bit on how you merge various parts of ecosystems, especially politics, into the startup, which is so much important for large scale change to happen. I have two questions, but I'll take one here because we have been talking a lot about like how do we enable the next round of growth for startups, and Techarena as the major force behind it. What's your take on how investment climate is right now in Sweden? Do you think we have the right level, momentum, or mindset? You have talked also about a lot of mindset in the last few months. Do we have the right mindset in Sweden to back startups? Or is there something we need to learn or improve going forward?
Yeah, I think that's a very relevant question. So mindset wise, I think that mindsets, as you talked about, always shift, right? And if you look at investors, so I mean, I can say it from listening to so many pitches. Investors are human, just like anybody else. So if it's a problem that you understand, that you recognize, that you feel familiar with, or that you know that gets you excited, then I think those areas will always get investments from these specific investors. And then you have this. So I would say that the investment mindset it's hard to kind of generalize and say that, we are very good at investments. We lack in some cases. I would say that, in other countries, the markets might be bigger. It might be like easier to do bigger rounds or, have more people follow on and all of this. At the end of the day, we're quite a small country, punching above our weight, as everybody is saying. I see that right now within some specific areas, such as,
Mm.
I don't need to mention, but AI.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hype, right?
Yeah,
But we have
yeah.
a lot of companies behind it. We have a lot of
Mm,
companies behind it. So, and they need funding.
mm,
And what's good now is that you see this, how would you say, very value driven investors. They're into, we want to improve healthcare. We will
mm,
invest in impact. We want to invest in this, or we want to improve the industrial sector. So I would say that the investment climate uh, is getting better.
yeah.
The investment climate is getting better. There's still a lot of like underinvested niches and industries. You still have this problem with, when companies come to a certain, they need to, do some specific investments, or, they come to a certain point that we might not be as strong as other countries in those
Mm,
phases.
mm,
But what I think is very, very good, and I'm very opportunistic and hopeful, is that right now we have this. Um, some of these have been part of like the startup journeys. They're not startups
mm,
anymore. I mean, Klarna is not a startup, but be part of this. We have people with money who can
mm,
start invest. So like the kind of angels and this type of when you get support and this. I think I'm very excited that you have like founders who are starting investing as well. So that
mm.
creates like another I would say level of opportunities for the ones who are who wants funding. So yeah, I think all in all, of course, there are a lot of underinvested areas, but it's going towards the right way.
Awesome, awesome. We'll also take a couple of community questions now. So, Dennis, big fan of Tech Arena. Omid here. Look forward to Tech Arena 2026. Question is, there are several major tech events in Nordics, such
Yeah,
as Slush in Helsinki, Tech Barbecue in Copenhagen. How do you distinguish, position Tech Arena to stand out in this field?
yeah. uh, um, so this is what we're working with, basically day in day out. So and this is something also that it takes time for us to kind of truly build our position. So me and the team, we know exactly what we want, right? So if you look at Slash, if you would generalize, I would say
Mm,
that it's a lot of investors and startups. I think though that's the kind of main, that's very much the stage program. You go there, there's a lot of investors and startups, and there's a lot of good things for founders where you can like learn go to market strategies, marketing, sales, all of these things.
mm,
And for us, I would say that like we want to add another layer. So for us, we also want to have the executives and the decision makers. So if you look at that, you should be able. One of the best quotes from last year was I talked to this startup, and they said that we are two founders. We both came to Techarena. One of us had more than 10 meetings with investors, and the other one had 14 meetings with potential clients. And that is what I want to create, and that is what we want to create. To have like a, to have this. It's not a startup and investor event; it's a business event, but focused on startups. So I think that's really important for us.
okay, amazing. I think thanks for that clarity note. I love the positioning. Um, Where is Sweden heading? Because you are putting Sweden on the global map. Sweden is
Yeah.
already in one of the top innovation ecosystems, but I think platforms like Tech Arena are great to further magnify the impact that we are creating. Where are we headed as Swedish ecosystem, innovation ecosystem? What do you see when you are running Tech Arena?
Uh, I'm very, very optimistic. I'm very
Mm,
optimistic about Sweden because we have, there's so many layers and there's so many factors that that make Sweden such a great country right now to build companies, to become a stronger ecosystem. So I think for me, I think that only good things for us ahead. Uh, so look at, we're punching above our weight when it comes to have like large scale making a difference on the world, in the world industrial companies, right? We have a lot, many more than we should have when it comes to like per capita. So that's good because we have knowledge. We have knowledge in the defense technology to solve. We have, we have knowledge in minerals. We have knowledge in telecommunications. So we have a lot of knowledge. I think that's like one good thing for us. We have the infrastructure. We're also, in a place where you and we're probably in the top of, using kind of the latest technologies, understanding like what's going on. So it means that, if we create something, it's for the future. It's not something for the past. So we always have the opportunity to create something that can make impact on a much larger scale than just in Sweden. We're a small country, so you need to export. I think we have a lot of experience. I think half of the Swedish economy is based on export. Mm. And when you have that as like a mindset for the whole country, it also helps startups to do that type of, it also enables startups to do it. We have educational system, which I think is we have some really good institutions, which I think helps us. Now we have a lot of talent. We have so many role models. Quantity gives birth to quality, right? So the more founders we have, the more we have the opportunity to have some really, really successful companies. We have a new breed of founders. I've never seen this before. They're amazing. They're like, they can start a company, try it out, understand the industry, see that this doesn't work, start another company, and then they succeed when they're 23 or 24 with some company, to go to the next level. And they've already failed 3 companies. And I think this is such a, I really like it because it's another type of building. They're more well equipped. They have, not all of them, of course. I do, so when I say this is a bit of generalization, but they have larger networks. They have more access to capital. They have more access to people who've done this before. I think that, and then, the thing what you're doing now with Startup Grind, and you have Founders House, and you have the, so I think it's a blooming startup ecosystem right now.
Amazing. Meet, you have so much positive energy for everything. You bring out so many points, which when you're living in an ecosystem, you simply sometimes overlook these things. So it's good to reflect. So thank you for a very strong reflective note on Swedish innovation ecosystem. My last point for our conversation, it's been amazing. There's a lot of notes. So I think there's a lot of interesting value going out to our global community. Tomorrow we'll be releasing the video on our Startup Grind platform. If a practical advice now for somebody who is building, because communities are in right now. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're building a business or starting something, it's very important that you have a community. If you're at that stage as a founder or an ecosystem person or an investor probably, and you want to build your community, what would be your advice? Of course, you are at a mega community level, but what would be some early processes to put in place if you want to build a strong community with somebody who is just starting out?
So I think one of the things, to go back to one of the things that you talked about in the beginning with the kind of focus, right? So I would say being an entrepreneur, being a founder, if you want to create something, it can't be a lifestyle. It kind of needs to be your life, right? So if you want to say it cannot be on the application level, it's on the motherboard level. And that means that basically you can't really do too much. And so you really need to, when you meet these people, they have so much conviction, they're obsessed. And I think that if you are at that level for anything, but let's say especially like community building, because community building is sometimes a bit ungrateful. It is, right? Because in the early stages, people just want, they want to come for free, they want to be on stage, they want to do this, they want to, so that's one of the things. And then like you're putting in a lot of efforts and then maybe, you're not getting the same response back. So I think that, but if you wanna, and this is go back to sports or whatever, like it's all about, it's not about winning or losing, it's just about evolving, right? So if you can see this as evolving, like, okay, so this time I have this community, I did this, I don't know, event or a newsletter, or I brought everybody together, 8 people came. Next time it's 15. Next time you have this, you know what I mean? You just need to be very, very goal oriented, and then you need to understand that you need to understand that everything you're doing is it's incremental improvements, like very, very small improvements, but you need to go with it. And the second thing I would say is that it's so important for you. It's very important to bring the right people along. So one of the things that I think for me has been the most vital is that if you look now, I mean, some of the most important things at Techarena I'm not doing. And I know about them, but I'm not doing them. I have other people that are much better than me. And that is needed because when you're building a community, there will be a lot of work, there will be a lot of like ups and downs, and you need to have other people that kind of, if you go down a bit, they should be able to bring you up. So basically everything that we do is about, like, we are focusing a lot on energy. So when COVID came, all of us at Techarena, I mean, we had a big safe place that was safe. We worked every day because I know that if I would be somewhere, someone else, Techarena wouldn't be here. And from that, like, that has been our kind of golden rule. Everybody's at the office and we give each other so much energy, like every day. I think that's really important. You can bounce ideas, all of this. So I think that if you want to be able to build a community, it's quite hard to do it by yourself. You need to have a good team, and you need to bring people who really wants to accomplish the same things. And then the last thing I would say is, I don't know if this is, there is one thing called founder's privilege, right? And I think if you're building a community, at some points, you need to understand that you can change the course of what's happening. You can make deals that maybe someone else that is, part of your team really can't. And you need to, if you have this conviction and you understand what's going on and you see things, then you should also have the courage to, in some cases, decide that, you know what, instead of doing this, we should do this. Or instead of doing a large scale event, we should do this. Or as we did, like in Techarena, let's rent a football arena with no previous experience in selling tickets. We have never been in a large stage. We didn't have any speakers. We had very, very few partners. But I think that we can do it and just go for it.
Very good point. So I'll summarize this. Like, this last part is gold. We'll highlight in one of our videos. You talked about focus. You also talked about obsession. You talked about patience in building things, because things will not start flying immediately. You talked about getting right people on board, and you talked about founders privilege. So I think these 5 summaries are very, very important in community building for anybody who is building community in any space. Omid, thank you so much for a very energetic and a very eye-opening discussion. I think this will be a lot of value to the Startup Grind community. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Naimul. It's been a pleasure. Very fun to talk with you.
Thank you.